They were warriors, mystics, and kings. From the heart of Persia, a dynasty rose that would reshape the Middle East, unite a fractured land, and give the world some of its most dazzling art and architecture. This was the Safavid Empire, a forgotten power that stood as Persia's beating heart for over 2 centuries. But like so many empires, its rise was meteoric and its fall catastrophic. This is the story of the Safavids, the forgotten empire of Persia. The Safavids did not begin as an empire. They began as a religious order. In the 14th century, in the city of Ardabil, a Sufi mystic named Safi al-Din gathered disciples. His teachings blended Islam with mysticism, promising both spiritual devotion and loyalty to a leader. His descendants carried the name Safavid, and over generations, this religious order transformed into a political movement. What started as a brotherhood of faith would, by the early 1500s, become the foundation of a dynasty. In 1501, a fiery young leader named Ismail seized control of Persia. Barely a teenager, Ismail claimed divine authority and declared himself Shah. With him, the Safavid dynasty was born. Ismail enforced Shi'a Islam as the official religion of Persia, a decision that would forever shape the identity of Iran. This was no small change. In a region dominated by Sunni Islam, Ismail's decree made the Safavids stand apart. The empire's Shia identity would become both its source of unity and its reason for endless conflict with its neighbors. Under Shah Ismail, the Safavid army swept across Persia, conquering territory and bringing once fractured regions under a single banner. He forged a state that could stand against its powerful rivals, the Ottoman Empire to the west and the Uzbek Khanates to the east. But Ismail's ambitions soon led him into disastrous wars. In 1514, at the Battle of Chaldiran, the Ottomans crushed the Safavid forces. The Safavids fought with courage, but they were outmatched by Ottoman cannons and gunpowder weapons. It was a bitter lesson. Mystical fervor could not defeat modern firepower. Still, the Safavid state survived, and though Ismail's pride was broken, his dynasty endured. Over the next century, the Safavids rebuilt and expanded, reaching their true height under one of Persia's greatest rulers, Shah Abbas the Great. Before we dive into Abbas's reign, take a second to hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying this journey into forgotten history. It helps us keep telling these untold stories, and I promise you, the rise of Shah Abbas is where the Safavid Empire truly begins to shine. When Shah Abbas the Great came to power in 1588, the Safavid Empire was crumbling. Enemies pressed in on every side, the Ottomans from the west, the Uzbeks from the east, and corruption within the court itself. Abbas was only in his late teens, but he proved himself to be one of the most brilliant rulers in Persian history. The first thing Abbas did was rebuild his army. He broke the power of the unruly tribal warriors who had long dominated Persian politics and replaced them with a new standing army, loyal only to him. He brought in modern weapons, muskets, artillery, and tactics learned from European advisors. Abbas understood something that his predecessors had not. If the Safavids wanted to survive against the Ottomans, they needed to embrace gunpowder warfare. Once his army was ready, Abbas went on the offensive. He crushed the Uzbeks in the east, driving them back from Persia's borders. Then he turned west and reclaimed vast swathes of territory from the Ottomans, including Baghdad and much of Mesopotamia. Under his leadership, the Safavid Empire expanded to its greatest extent. Persia was no longer a vulnerable state caught between rivals. It was a great power in its own right. But Abbas was more than just a conqueror. He was also a builder. He moved the capital to Isfahan, a city that he transformed into one of the most stunning capitals the world has ever seen. With its grand mosques, palaces, and bazaars, Isfahan earned the nickname half the world. Travelers from Europe, India, and the Ottoman Empire marveled at its beauty. Abbas filled his city with gardens, tree-lined boulevards, and monumental architecture that symbolized the glory of Persia. Trade also flourished under Abbas. He opened the empire to merchants from across the globe, striking deals with the English and the Dutch to weaken Portuguese control of the Persian Gulf. The Safavid Empire became a vital link in global trade, exporting silk, carpets, and ceramics that dazzled the courts of Europe. Abbas turned Persia into a hub of wealth, culture, and diplomacy, standing proudly between East and West. Culturally, the Safavid Golden Age was unmatched. Persian art, miniature painting, and calligraphy reached dazzling heights. The weaving of Persian carpets became legendary, with designs so intricate they are still considered masterpieces today. The empire's mosques and palaces glowed with tiles of turquoise and gold, testaments to a dynasty that blended mysticism with grandeur. Yet Abbas was also ruthless. He executed rivals, blinded his own sons to secure his throne, and ruled with an iron fist. His paranoia may have preserved his power, but it left the empire fragile once he was gone. Still, in his lifetime, Abbas the Great had transformed Persia into a superpower. His reign was the pinnacle of the Safavid dynasty, but no golden age lasts forever. After Abbas, the Safavid Empire began a slow decline, undone by weak rulers, internal corruption, and the ambitions of foreign powers. The decline of the Safavid Empire began almost as soon as Shah Abbas the Great died in 1629. His successors lacked his vision, energy, and ruthless control. Many of the later Shahs were weak, isolated within their palaces, and manipulated by court factions, religious clerics, or even eunuchs and harem officials. The powerful, centralized state Abbas had built started to unravel. One of the empire's greatest problems was succession. Abbas had deliberately crippled or eliminated his heirs, fearing they might rise against him. This left behind rulers with little training or ability. Over time, each new Shah seemed less prepared than the last. As the throne passed to incompetent rulers, corruption at court spread like a disease. Ministers enriched themselves while neglecting the provinces, and the once loyal army began to crumble without strong leadership. The economy, once thriving on silk trade and international commerce, also began to falter. European merchants found new routes that bypassed Persia. At the same time, heavy taxation and mismanagement drained the countryside, leaving peasants impoverished and angry. Banditry and rebellion became more common, further weakening the state. Externally, Persia's enemies were watching closely. The Ottomans, longtime rivals, pressed in from the west. In the east, new powers like the Mughals in India and tribal forces in Central Asia tested Persia's borders. The once mighty Safavid army, no longer properly funded or disciplined, was unable to defend the empire as it once had. Religion also played a role in the decline. The Safavids had built their legitimacy on Shi'a Islam, but over time, the clerical establishment grew more powerful and intolerant. Intellectual life, which had once thrived, began to stagnate under rigid orthodoxy. The energy of Safavid Persia, its openness to trade, art, and new ideas, was replaced by isolation and suspicion. The final blow came in 1722, when Afghan tribes from the east rose up in rebellion. The Safavid Shah at the time, Sultan Hussein, was weak and indecisive. The Afghan forces marched straight into Persia and laid siege to the capital, Isfahan. After months of starvation and suffering, the city surrendered. For the first time in centuries, the Persian heartland fell to foreign invaders. The once great Safavid dynasty collapsed in humiliation. Persia was left fragmented, vulnerable to both internal chaos and foreign domination. Although later dynasties would rise, the Afsharids, the Qajars, none would recapture the exact mix of mysticism, power, and cultural brilliance that defined the Safavid era. And yet, the legacy of the Safavids lived on. They had forged a unified Persian identity under Shi'a Islam, one that still defines Iran today. Their art, architecture, and cultural achievements remain among the most celebrated in Persian history. The Safavid Empire may have fallen, but it left behind a foundation that shaped the... Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more deep dives into the world's incredible histories.